It's as strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to.
Hi guys, welcome back to Exmo Lex. As you can see, today I am joined by my husband Brendan.
Hey guys, what's up?
Today, as you can probably see in the title, we're going to be reading more missionary stories, and I always want Brendan to do these with me because I feel like as somebody who never went on a mission, sometimes I'm not the best at explaining certain things, and Brendan can relate to things a lot better than I can. So also, you guys really seem to like it when he's in my videos. You think he's funny or something. So Brendan hasn't seen any of these. I went through and grabbed a few that you guys had emailed that were commented, and we're just going to start reading them. My companion and I were over the singles in our mission area. One of the singles' moms told us that he had moved across town to live with his girlfriend, but she wasn't sure exactly where he lived. We literally spent the entire afternoon knocking doors asking the people in that area if they knew him or where he lived. We eventually found his house and told his mother where he lived. Totally not creepy or an invasion of privacy, all in the name of bringing back the lost sheep.
That crosses so many lines.
It does. I would feel really upset if somebody did that to me.
That's essentially, what's that app? The 360 app?
Oh, Life 360?
Life 360, but the missionaries do it for you.
On my mission, my trainer and I really loved this Indian restaurant that was a quarter-mile outside of our area. So in missions, you have like an area that you have to stay in, right?
You're not allowed to leave.
They went a quarter-mile outside their area.
No.
One day we'd been working on the edge of our area and had a really rough day. We decided to go to that restaurant for dinner to treat ourselves. As we were driving back into our area after dinner, she says to me, "I feel really bad about that, but it just tasted so good." And without missing a beat, I replied, "I'm pretty certain that's exactly what Adam and Eve said." Cringe! Yeah, it's just crazy to me that it's so strict that you can't leave a quarter-mile outside of it just to get some food. That is such a tiny space.
We left ours all the time. Yeah.
Rebellion. That's why he ended up leaving the church.
Totally.
I was a missionary in the Calgary, Canada mission, and this story is probably my greatest shame as a human being, not just as a missionary. Once, my companion and I visited an inactive member who had schizophrenia in a mental institution. I can't remember the exact details, but either the voices in his head told him to cut himself, or he cut himself to get the voices out. Either way, he was cutting himself. Anyway, he had discovered that when he smoked cigarettes, he didn't want to cut himself nearly as much, so he would just have frequent smoke breaks in the courtyard of the hospital and feel a lot less terrible. Anyway, that didn't jive with the church's rules, so our purpose for visiting him was to get him to stop smoking. The entire time we were doing this, I felt sick. I knew it was wrong, but I kept going against my own thoughts and feelings in order to do what was right by the church's perspective. He didn't ultimately listen to us, but what we did was add yet another voice of self-doubt into his head that undoubtedly caused more damage to him. I've never forgiven myself for that. It was the first time I genuinely understood how wrong the church's one-size-fits-all approach is. I wasn't brave enough to reject it then, and for all I know, I may have caused irreparable damage to an innocent person because I didn't listen to myself. I definitely agree with the idea that the church teaches a one-size-fits-all religion, and they expect everybody to be able to fit into that same box and have it work for everybody.
That just ain't possible.
No.
I never had anything that drastically obvious that, like, I mean, we could have been teaching people stuff that I'm sure it damaged them mentally and in other ways. It wasn't as visible as that.
Yeah. My mission in a nutshell. 1, a woman passed away on the flight to my mission, Jakarta, Indonesia, a few seats in front of me on the plane.
Jesus.
2, I was sexually assaulted by my trainer in the first 2 months. She was not sent home, and I was not released because according to my mission president, there was no such thing as an honorable release. 3, I was on national TV. 4, I was so deeply depressed from my assault that I prayed to die every single day. I think that as you guys will see as we continue through some of these, and if you've watched some of the other mission stories videos we've done, I'll leave a link in the description to a playlist. It's really not that uncommon for this to happen. There's other ex-Mormons, if you've watched a lot of Mormon stories, that you'll see this has happened to on their mission. They were assaulted by a trainer or somebody in a similar position that has power. And like in this instance, the church a lot of times tries to sweep that kind of thing under the rug because it looks really bad if people find out. The trainer was not sent home and she was not released because according to the mission president, there was no such thing as an honorable release.
Oh my God, what? The fact that I was offered an honorable release when I was like deathly ill was such a weight off my shoulders, just that alone. Even though I decided to stay, just being told that I could go and it would be an honorable release, like, took so much stress and guilt away.
My mission was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. First of all, yuck. Like, it sounds terrible. That's all I've heard, and that sounds terrible. Getting there from the MTC in Provo should have been simple, but it was a troubled day from the start. Our group was told to wake up early and be at the MTC travel office at 4 a.m. Most of us were too excited to go to bed at the normal assigned bedtime of 10:30 the night before. So there was a lot of talking and laughing until much later. Can I just say that I think it's weird that there's like assigned bedtimes and stuff?
It's
like
creepy.
They're adults. I mean, it's very, very controlling.
I can say without a doubt that almost nobody followed that. At least we didn't. I mean, it, again, like I've said in past videos, it depended on your companion and how rigid they were versus how laid back they were. If they were laid back, we'd stay up forever.
Yeah.
But
I think that part of the reason that they send missionaries on a mission when they do is because you usually at 18, 19 years old are just either barely leaving your parents' house or haven't yet.
you're so moldable.
Yeah, you're
and
still so used
easily
to
controlled.
being parented, being controlled, being told when to go to bed, being told, you know, all of these different things.
Yep.
So they're like, oh, if we take them from home when they're still really young like that, we'll be able to control them better.
The church is not stupid. They know that, oh, if we wait until they're adults, then they can do adult things like drive and whatever. But at the same time, they're just kids still. So we can manipulate them very easily.
I don't think I fell asleep until past midnight, and then I woke up around 2:30 a.m. so I could shower and get all of my things packed for the trip. We all stood around in the dark outside while we waited for the travel office to open, which wasn't until about an hour later at 5 a.m. We got to the Salt Lake City airport about 5:45 and waited around for another 45 minutes or so for the baggage check desks to open. So that's already almost 2 wasted hours where I could have been sleeping. Getting onto our 7:30 flight to Denver after that was pretty uneventful. But in Denver, we discovered that our 11 a.m. flight to Tulsa was canceled. Of the 17 missionaries traveling, one was given a cell phone from the church and was assigned to be the travel group leader. I never spoke to him, but I guess somehow he got word to the rest of us that we were going to try to get on later flights to Tulsa through standby seating. Throughout the day, small groups of missionaries were able to fit on other flights headed to Tulsa. I just remember being very worried and confused because I had no idea what was going on or how or when I was supposed to get on a plane to Tulsa. Finally, a group of us, which included me, got on the last flight to Tulsa around 10 p.m. That's just like, that's another thing where the church has made it impossible for adults to just be adults. One person with a cell phone and a group of 17 people that are all getting on planes at different times.
I mean, I didn't go through that with my flights and stuff, but even just the normal flights and all the transferring from plane to plane and not knowing who to talk to when we got there and all that, that was jarring enough.
Because you're really, at the time, you're going to be really young, you're going to be inexperienced about that kind of thing. You'll probably have never flown by yourself.
Maybe not.
If at all. Like, it's just, that's a lot for a young person to handle. So I spent all day wandering the Denver airport with no cell phone, no computer, no food, hardly any money, and nothing to do except read some scriptures or missionary books. And I'm wearing a suit and tie and a name tag. I got off the plane in Tulsa around midnight, and I missed the training day the mission president had planned for all the new missionaries at the mission home, which was supposed to be fun and restful and include some good meals. When I got to the mission home, several missionaries from the group that had gotten there earlier had apparently been asleep for hours. I waited another hour or so to get a turn in the bathroom to just brush my teeth, and finally went to sleep around 2 in the morning, so close to 24 hours of being awake. But it gets worse. Immediately the next morning, we had to leave at 6:30 a.m. for transfers to get to our new area. I woke up at 5 to make sure I could beat the other new missionaries to the shower, and when I got into my new area, which was right in Tulsa, so no chance to sleep on the road, the zone leaders there wanted me to go immediately to work with them. In my new bike area, in the 90-degree, 90% humidity summer heat, on 6 hours of sleep across 48 hours. It took me months to recover from that sleep deprivation. Oh, I can't imagine.
I feel your pain.
They don't even want to give him 1 day to recover.
I didn't have anything like that happen as far as sleep deprivation due to like arriving in the area. But there were some areas we transferred where it was a really far drive. You had to get up super early to make sure that you were there to transfer, and that meant you were there earlier than everyone else because you had a further drive or whatever. I remember some of that, but yeah, the scorching heat and the bike area and all that. I served in North Carolina during the summer was just so miserable. Having like no sleep, which I mentioned I got sick. I did get sick for like 6 months at the end of my mission, so I was pretty well bedridden. And at first it was kind of like there was a push to keep going out and working, and then it just got so bad that I physically couldn't, and then they kind of seemed like everybody kind of backed off and was like, just get the rest that you need. But I still felt guilty about not going out and working, so I wasn't sleeping good, I wasn't eating well, I was losing liquid like crazy, and I still forced myself to go bike one summer day, and we had a hill right outside our apartment, so I forced myself to try and bike up this hill, and I passed out and like fell off the side of the road into the grass, and I think I spent pretty much the entire day in urgent care getting water pumped into my system. It's miserable.
And you're just a kid. Like, I think about pictures of you from when you were a missionary and you
I
look like a baby. Well, if I can find a picture, we'll put it up on the screen so you can see. But it's just like, imagine these poor kids out here trying to do the Lord's work and passing out on the side of the road. Okay, another one with humidity. Served in Atlanta in the late 90s. That was fun, trying to get used to garments in that awful southern humidity.
That is the worst.
Sweaty?
It's the worst. My shirts were so yellow.
Ooh.
Oh, God.
My companion and I would bike several miles and show up to appointments literally drenched in sweat. It was so awkward and uncomfortable. Come on in.
Literally drenched, like you could pretty much see, you could see nipple through those shirts, even through the garments. I mean, and then you took your backpack off your back and you just had like swack, like hardcore, terrible swass, everything. There were days where it would like, there'd be like a torrential rain and you'd be soaked to the bone, and then it would dry up immediately and the sun would come out and the humidity would be so unbearable you felt like you couldn't breathe. So you're wet. You're just wet.
Perpetually wet.
It was awful.
We were constantly being yelled at for being in a cult by the crazy evangelicals down there. Also had guns pulled on us a couple times. Best 2 years? LOL, not even close. Also only had one baptism, who went inactive before my mission was over. That sucks.
Best 2 years.
Best 2 years.
We're like best single day and then the rest is hell.
I was in Venezuela from 2003 to 2006. I saw some crazy stuff. A dude riding a bike along the highway got hit by a car in front of me. Their papers don't censor anything, so any murder or bad accident that was reported was just out in full view. There were riots against the government. I saw police beating people. One time, we were just walking down the road to an appointment, walked right through a bunch of police lining up on the road. I told my senior companion we should turn around, but he was all hell-bent on going to meet with the poor person who'd begrudgingly assented to our visit the day before. We turned the corner to discover that the local university kids were rioting and had dug up a bunch of corpses from the cemetery across from their school and piled them up in the road and had lit a bunch of tires on fire. Lastly, we were woken one morning to a grenade being set off in the doorway of the local ward building right across the street from our apartment. It was no surprise to me when all the non-Venezuelan missionaries were kicked out of the country just 3 weeks after I came home. We were left there for way too long. This actually happens quite a bit, where missionaries are sent to very unsafe, chaotic areas.
I mean, there were bad areas in North Carolina. There were bad areas in Durham in North Carolina where I'm pretty sure we had missionaries get guns pulled on them. We had missionaries get mugged and had their like bags stolen and stuff, which, way to go, you found some scriptures.
Yeah, all that money you're gonna get. My brother went to South Africa and he and his companion were robbed at gunpoint. And I mean, they didn't have much, they don't have a lot of money. And I think they stole like a camera and a watch.
We had a card that had money loaded onto it that like wasn't even very much. I never had cash. The only thing of value that we ever had were tracting treasures. And I don't know if anyone else watching will know what those are, but if you do,
what's tracting
props.
treasures?
Tracting treasures is like, because you're so freaking bored all the time, you're out constantly, so you would find stupid little things off the side of the road, like action figures missing legs or whatever, and you'd like name them, and we had like a logbook with like the day that we found it, and we'd like name things, and like, yeah, just loads of stuff because we were so bored. And then you'd have your like collection of stupid tracting treasures, at least some of us did, that we'd like show each other. So
this is how you find
and
your
I kept some of them for a long time, like even after I got home, and then after a while I was like, okay, this is trash.
This is literally garbage I found on the side of the road. Yeah. My mission experience was not pleasant, and I have so many stories. I want to share this one though, as I think that sexual assault in the Mormon church should be exposed.
Yes.
I served in the censored time and place. I had one particular companion who was very controlling about everything that I did. One day we were talking to a single woman member at the door, and he wanted to go in. Being the good Mormon missionary that I was, I did not want to. I think that this both angered and embarrassed my companion. The discussion ended at the door, and as we biked back to the flat, he rode up beside me and threatened to kill me. I was so scared, I rode fast back to the flat, but it was not fast enough to keep him out. He assaulted me in the flat and proceeded to rape me. I was so shaken afterwards, wondering how could this happen to me. It did not stop there though. He continued to abuse me for the rest of the time I was his companion. He did not rape me again, but he would make me masturbate in front of him, often in the flat. I felt so ashamed. I thought that God was punishing me for some reason. I still get triggered every time I see missionaries. The experience has left me scarred. I hate how the church covers up abuse. This is a very personal experience, but I'm okay for you to share. If you do, please do not disclose the place or time period. I think people need to be made aware. I am sorry for the dark nature of my experience. Please know that later I was able to get help, and I am in a much better place now.
God, that's awful.
That is heartbreaking and horrifying. Just judging from what is written, it seems like the church did nothing to help.
That person should be in jail. It's insane.
I can't imagine being in that sort of position, and especially like considering the feelings that Mormons often have about stuff like that. Like when I was like 9 years old and a picture of Jesus fell on my head, I thought it was because I hadn't paid my tithing. And that was like a really basic, simple, tiny thing, and I was a child.
The guilt, you'd feel like you were like the lowest piece of crap on earth.
Yeah.
And I felt like that over lesser things.
Yeah, like, I mean, I just can't imagine the guilt that would have eaten this person up, even though they did nothing wrong. That's just awful. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder while in the MTC. It was so bad that I didn't eat for 3 days, barely slept, and started hearing voices from lack of sleep and nutrition. I came home, and everyone assumed I'd been doing the no pants dance with my girlfriend. Several people stopped talking to me when I came home. Yeah, unfortunately, not uncommon.
Not uncommon at all.
A lot of missionaries, when they come home, they find that, I mean, regardless of the reason that they came home, they find that people will kind of like soft shun them almost.
If you came home early for any reason.
I'll leave another link in the description to a missionary story that was sent to me, but the fact that this person came home early and had people treat them so badly is just, it's pretty common. A lot of people will assume that you've done something really bad and that's why you're back, and they will avoid you for that reason.
That's the exact reason that even though I was like sick and felt like I was gonna die, I had 3 months left. I mean, it was the last 6 months of my mission, but when I started to kind of feel better, I had about 3 left. Still was sick all the way to the end, but I was like, my mission president told me I could go home, and I was like, I'm gonna force myself to stay because my family will judge me hard, and other people that I know will judge me hard, and I already get plenty of that, so
yeah.
I forced myself to stay out and was miserable the whole time.
This took place in 2012. At this point, I had been out about 18 months. I served in central Canada, and the town I was in was known for having some higher than normal crime statistics. For this reason, we had an unwritten rule, no tracting after 6. Well, the assistants, anal pushers as we called them, were in town for splits. Yes. Oh goody. The older assistant paired it with my greenie, and I sent them to teach our lesson we had set up. The new firecracker decided he was going to whip me into shape. Now they had gotten into town late during dinner, so I explained the no tracting after 6 rule. He demands an explanation. I explained missionaries we both knew personally had been robbed at knife point. This seems to somewhat satisfy him. Can we street contact then? Now this wasn't a big town, but there was a small downtown area.
No, we can't! We're going home. I don't understand it. I had companions like this. I don't understand that mentality. I don't understand it.
I can just see you like...
Oh, I got like that with some... I dropped an F-bomb at one of my companions once.
This wasn't a big town, but there was a small downtown area, so we head there. Now, I don't think we got 25 steps from the car when a couple approached us. Now, two things became obvious very quickly. One, these two were heavily intoxicated in some way. And two, the gentleman was severely bleeding from his left arm.
Oh my God.
Now, for whatever reason, this assistant decided he's going to be a crime scene investigator. He starts asking the gentleman what happened. I gently interject and ask if we could call them an ambulance. They decline, but ask if they can use our phone. Now, something they said about who they were going to call kind of sent red flags up for me, but the assistant handed over the phone. The gentleman then proceeds to call their drug dealer.
Oh.
Now, while this fella's working out his next score, the assistant began talking to his lady friend. At some point in the conversation, she had been repeating, "I'm stabbed too." So the assistant asked, "Where?" "On my chest." Then he said, "Well, can I see it?" Well, she showed us. She wasn't stabbed, by the way. I guess it was at this point, after seeing a stab wound, having the guy call his drug dealer on our phone, and seeing some boobs, that the assistant decided it was time to go. After extricating our phone from the guy, we hightail it to the car. He did say he's going to talk to the president about making no contacting after 6 a permanent rule in our area.
That's one of the best ones I've ever heard. Oh, man.
I guess he probably learned a lesson, though, about going into an unsafe area like that after, you know, a certain time at night.
Yeah.
My mission president assaulted me. Didn't strike me, mind you, but grabbed me by my lapel and pushed me. What brought this on, I'm sure you're wondering. I made a call home to a friend without permission. He was showing me the call records on an iPad, and I tried to grab it to get a closer look, and that set him off for some reason. Can you imagine? You called home. You called a friend.
It's ridiculous.
They don't let you... I mean, I think that the rules have changed a little bit now. I think you're allowed to call home like once
a week.
Yeah.
It used to be on Mother's Day and Christmas.
Twice a year you were allowed to call home. And you got a limited amount of time too. Do you know how much time it was that you got to talk on the phone?
I'm pretty sure it was an hour.
An hour.
But we would always stretch that.
There's going to be missionaries who are from a divorce. So their parents don't live together. So in order to get to talk to both of them, they have to split that time between the two.
Yeah.
So they get like a half hour. And again, these are kids. Like, they've just left home for the first time. And can you imagine you've been living at home, you've never been away from home, you've always been with your parents, you're like 18 years old, and then all of a sudden you're cut down to, well, you get to call them twice a year and you get an hour. I'm really glad that they've changed it, but that was recent. Like, that's been within the last like 2 or 3 years that they changed that. It just makes me sad to know that there's missionaries that are going through that kind of stuff today, that are super depressed, that have little to no control over their daily life, even though they're adults. And you know, I have a family member that I learned recently is going on a mission, and hearing that and like thinking about this person and how young they are, and it just hurts my heart knowing that missionaries have to go through the stuff that they go through. Regardless of what you believe, if you are an ex-Mormon or if you're somebody who was never Mormon, if you see missionaries out and about, be kind.
Don't throw beer bottles
Don't throw
at them.
stuff at them. Don't call them names. Just don't do anything. Leave them be. Leave them alone if you can't be nice to them. I've sometimes seen people that, you know, believe really strongly that the church is a cult, and I believe the church is a cult myself. But these people, these are kids. They're like 18 to 20 years old.
I mean, they have no clue.
Yeah, most of them have no idea. I mean, most of them are born into it, or, you know, heard all of the good things about the church and converted, but don't know any of the bad things.
I was completely brainwashed, knew nothing about the other side of it. And I had a full can of beer thrown at me, and it broke on my ankle and cut my leg open while I was biking. Like, this kind of stuff, don't do that kind of stuff to people.
And think about, like, the position, some of these stories that we've just read, think about how these people were feeling when they were on their mission. How they're, you know, they're going door to door, they're in the street every day, and they're feeling all of these sorts of things. Maybe they've been assaulted by their companion. Maybe they've been, you know, super depressed or anxious. Maybe they have had these terrible experiences. A lot of them are going to end up with PTSD at some point. And to have somebody be mean to them in the street is just one more thing that they have to go home and think about. And a lot of them do believe in this really kind of superstitious thing that, like, if bad things happen to me, it's because I'm not good enough.
Yep.
So I guess the whole point, like, coming back around is, no, the church is still not true. It still harms people. It harms its own missionaries. And if you see missionaries out and about, if missionaries knock on your door, just be as kind as you possibly can to them.
Teach them the Exmo stuff politely.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much to everybody who sent in your stories. I'm sorry we didn't get to read all of them, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. I hope it was, you know, helpful or enlightening or cathartic in some way.
Also, if you like this design, I drew this. This is available on merch and stuff. It's the inverted Salt Lake Temple. Evil.
He's an artist. He's an evil Exmo artist.
Evil.
Yeah, I'll put
So
another
evil.
picture up on the screen so you can see the design better. And yeah, I do have merch. If anybody wants to help support the channel, there are links to do so in the description. I've got like merch, Patreon, lots of other little links and things you can do to help. So speaking of people who help support the channel, big shout out to my patrons for supporting. I appreciate you guys so much. You are the absolute best. And special thank you to AA, Brett Fairborn, Craig Call, Doug Davis, Mormonland, The Guiltiest Place on Earth, Jason Wilkins, Noble Monster Comics, Tans, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Brendan, for helping out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping. These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.